Okay, councillors. May the Lord give this council the wisdom, discernment and courage to serve the community. Grant also that we may act compassionately and with integrity in the best interest of this shire. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I would like to show respect and acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land and elders past, present and future on which this meeting takes place. This meeting is now being video recorded, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements. There are to be no other recording of this meeting without prior authorisation of council. Thank you. Okay, councillors, we move into the extraordinary council meeting and ask for any apologies.
Mr Mayor, I have one from Councillor Abbott seeking leave of absence. Councillor Abbott is out of the area on private business.
I'll move.
Move Councillor Brown, second Councillor Watts. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, councillors, we've got 4 parts of the extraordinary meeting and I'll hand over to the General Manager. Oh no, sorry. I'll go through 09.1, the returning officer, the recommendations in front of you there. I've got a mover. Move Councillor Brown, second Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Mr GM. I'll just step down.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, item as the returning officer, item 9.2, the determination of the method of voting. If I could just get a mover and a seconder, please, for the recommendation by ordinary ballot, which is the normal way that you do it. Councillor Burns and Councillor. Thank you. All in favour? Those against? Declare that carried. Councillors, item 9.3, our first election tonight is for the election of mayor. I have received 1 written nomination. The 2 nominees are Councillor Campbell and Councillor Fisher, recommending Councillor Collison. Councillor Collison has duly consented to being nominated for the office of mayor until September 2021. So I have that nomination, and that's bona fide. So I'll now make a call for any further nominations for the election of mayor. I'll do one final call for the election of mayor. I'll take that as a no. So therefore, councillors, we have only 1 nomination for the election of mayor. So therefore, there is no need to hold an election. And I'm very pleased to announce that Councillor Morris Collison is the mayor of the Upper Hunter Shire Council for the ensuing 12-month period to September 2021. Councillors, we now have a second election. That's for the election of deputy mayor. I have received 1 written nomination. Councillor Collison and Councillor Campbell have nominated Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fisher has formally consented to being nominated for the office of deputy mayor, which equally is till September 2021, and that's been signed. I'll now ask as to whether there are any further nominations for the election of deputy mayor from the floor. I'll ask one final time, are there any nominations for the election of deputy mayor from the floor? It would seem that we don't. So as with the election of the mayor, we only have 1 nomination, Councillor Fisher. So with great pleasure, I announce that Councillor Fisher is elected as the deputy mayor till September 2021. Mr. Mayor, you can now return, and that's the extraordinary.
Thank you, councillors, and thank you for your trust for me to lead you in the next to the next elections. And thank you to Councillor Fisher for your help at this stage and for the next 12 months. Looking forward to working as a team and really looking forward to the big projects we've got before the end of the term. Thank you, councillors. Okay, any public participation? Neil?
Apologies, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, apologies, sorry. Apologies.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have an apology from Councillor Abbott. Councillor Abbott is away from the area on private business and seeks leave of absence.
Move Councillor Watts, second Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against, carried. Public participation? Neil?
Nil, Mr. Mayor.
Confirmation of the minutes, councillors. The first one was held on the 31st of August. Am I like to move them? Move Councillor Watts, second Councillor Driscoll. Questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a correction on page 3 of the minutes. Was an apology for that meeting and am recorded as voting in one of the matters, 8.3 in fact. I suspect it was Councillor Burns in the first item, which is ISC 0807. And it's also reported as voting in the following item as well, ISC 8.8. And I understand Councillor Burns had a conflict of interest in that matter.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. The mover and the second, happy to slight alteration in that. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, there was one further point. I note that in the in both of those matters, Councillor Abbott is recorded as voting as abstaining in the against column. My understanding is that the Code of Meeting Practice and the Act don't allow a councillor to abstain.
That's correct, Mr. General Manager. You agreeance with it?
Sorry, the question was that a councillor is
not able to abstain. They must vote one way or the other. They don't have the luxury of abstaining. That's my understanding.
Mr. Mayor, under the Code of Meeting Practice, it's an interesting one, this one, because it's actually to do with the pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest declaration and the decision to remain in the chamber and not participate either in the vote or the discussion. And the Code of Meeting Practice is very clear. The words are, if you are in the meeting, which you are if you elect to do that, and you don't vote because you've nominated you're not going to vote due to your non-pecuniary or pecuniary, whatever you've declared, if you're in the chamber and you don't vote, it must be recorded as a negative vote. So the reason, as a no vote, the reason I put the word abstained in there so it's clear to the readers of the minutes that in this example, the councillor didn't actually vote against it. They voted against it because a no vote is a negative vote. So, so the word abstained is there simply to indicate the person didn't knowingly vote against that particular matter. It has to be recorded as a negative vote because the person was in the chamber and did not vote. And the code's very clear on that. You have to, and because this council has nominated to record all votes for and against that are not unanimous. A lot of councils don't do that one, but you do here in your code. Therefore, it has to be formally recorded as a negative vote. Because when you declare that non-pecuniary interest, you have a choice. There are some suggestions that when you declare a non-pecuniary interest, you must leave the room. That's not actually correct. You can declare your interest, particularly if it's non-pecuniary and less than significant, and remain in the room and not participate. There are many who don't like doing that. They just prefer to leave the room, and that's fine. But if you do elect to stay in the room and you don't vote because that's what you've declared in your interest, yes, it has to be recorded as a negative vote. And the word abstained is simply there to show that it wasn't a deliberate negative vote. It was a default negative vote.
Okay, happy with that, Councillor Brown? Okay, no more questions, comment, discussion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over, councillors, to the ordinary council meeting held on the 27th of July. There's a small amended on page 11 at G07.3. Move Councillor Driscoll. Seconder. Councillor Fisher. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over, councillors, to page 1 of the agenda, A09.1, recognition of length of service. The recommendation that council... Oh, sorry, I've jumped the gun. Disclosure of interest, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've received 2 disclosures in writing. Councillor Burns on business item G09.3, the cultural activity grants. And Councillor Burns has nominated that as a non-pecuniary, non-significant, and will have no involvement. The reason being he has children attending one of the primary schools. I'm not sure if Councillor Burns intends to stay in the room or leave the room on that one. Yes, I have no involvement and leave the room. Yep, it just the form doesn't go that far. Mr. Mayor, whilst not a voting conflict of interest, one of the staff, the Director of Infrastructure Services, has also declared a non-pecuniary, non-significant in the same item. And for a similar matter, his son attends the Scone Scout Group. But the Director of Infrastructure Services won't be voting, but felt comfortable making that declaration notwithstanding.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Okay, councillors, we'll move on now to page A09.1, recognition of length of service. The council recognised Glenn Simpson and Kevin Sams for their 20-year service to council. Just that I will be meeting both those employees over the next week or so to do a presentation to them, most likely at their workplace. So move Councillor Watts, second Councillor Burns. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? It's carried. Over to A09.2, Mayor for the Day 2020 presentation. Firstly, councillors, thank you for those who participated in going through a very long list. The Mayor 2020 Mayor for the Day competition is all an important part of the local government week in the Upper Hunter Shire. It is a great opportunity for young students to share their ideas about the community where they live. This year received 675 entries from 8 primary schools in our shire. So may I first congratulate each and every child that or student that put in for those, and council has certainly got a lot of laughs and privileged to go through those nominations. So I'll just go through, I'll just read these out. The Aberdeen Public School was Heidi Warden-Berlin and Gabrielle Phillips. Blandford Public School, Montana Rando and Macarthur Bennington. Elliston Public School, Lara Robertson and Riley Mitchell. Murrundi Public School for Zachary Gallick and Sariti Golly. Scone Grammar, Lucy Ann Giblin and Molly McCosker. Scone Public School was Clancy Legg and Charassi Liverton. St Joseph's Primary School, Merriwar, Tess Grockett and Savannah Beanie. St Mary's Primary School was Sky McRae and Lucy French. So we thank you and congratulate all those winners. The overall winner for the Upper Hunter Shire Mayor for the day 2020 is MacArthur Beddington, and the Deputy Mayor is Lucy French. I believe we've got a small presentation there, Robin, on their stories.
If I were Mayor for the day, I would plan, design and create a cycle/walkway in Murrundi. It would link both sides of town and follow the bank of the Pages River. The cycle/walkway would have stops along the way where you could stop and relax to enjoy the scenery and wildlife. I would also incorporate a playground and picnic areas. It would be perfect for Murrundi as we have such beautiful attractions, but not many footpaths or walkways to enjoy them. You could walk, ride your bike or horse, push a pram, ride a gopher or scooter, and enjoy the path.
If I was Mayor for the day, I would redecorate the main street so that when people come to Scone, they'll see all the hard work that we have put in. It would also look nice, and it would be good to look at a beautiful sight, way better than seeing buildings. Another idea could be to have this one super nice garden, sort of like the Japanese gardens, and in the middle have a little cafe and an area that is really comfy for people to meet up and even make some new friends. These would be my ideas, and I hope that you like them. We could really get some attractions, which means more money, and with that money, we can pay for even better things.
And thank you very much to MacArthur and Lucy. And if you're zooming in at home, we'll certainly endeavour in the near future to have you both into the council chambers under the COVID rules and do a presentation to you. So thank you all very, very much. Okay, councillors, we move over to the standing. Moved Councillor Burns, second Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, we move over to page 3, SCR 09.1, the Finance Committee. Move Councillor Brown, second Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Watts.
I just think we need to make note that we're talking here to make redundant the Finance Committee and the Upper Hunter Shire Land Committee. And is this, I think we just should have some discussion on it, being where it is. I don't disagree with the recommendation.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Watts. We had the last Finance Committee, well, the previous committee meeting, there was some discussion about how we could reform the manner in which information is provided to council through this committee and how we could make it a little bit more effective. And the acting general manager has provided the committee with a proposal to abolish the finance and land committees into one and forming a corporate services standing committee. It's largely based on a model that many other councils across New South Wales use, and it will, I think, provide certainly a more efficient and effective way of reporting to council financial matters, pretty much on an exceptional basis. At the moment, the Finance Committee agendas are over 300 pages in length. The meetings can take up to 3.5 to 4 hours. to complete. There's a lot of information, and the committee, I think, felt that it would be a better use of time if we had reported to us regularly where things aren't proceeding as planned. So if there are operational plan KPIs that are not being met, then those be reported to the committee rather than everything that is going to plan. There's the same on the financial KPIs as well, so that if everything is going according to plan, we don't really need to know about it. It's only when decisions need to be made or something is going awry. And then we can spend a bit more time, I think, discussing those and drilling down into the detail, into, what might be the causes of those issues. Have we provided enough resources? Do we need more personnel? Those sorts of questions can be addressed there. It also broadens the scope of the committee as well, so that we can discuss some of the other corporate matters that the committees don't tend to address and that would ordinarily be reported to council, where we can't provide the level of scrutiny, I suppose, and discuss in a committee setting things that relate to our integrated planning and reporting arrangements. For instance, it's the same. I think the general manager also felt that the land committee was a little bit unwieldy in the same way, and that if we could merge both of those functions into the one committee, we'd probably get better bang for our buck. The other thing that I think is proposed as part of this is that we're required to review the progress of the operational plan every 6 months as a minimum, and we need to review our budget, I think, every 3 months as a minimum. We currently review both every month, and I think it impacts on the staff's ability to deliver what we want, because they're so busy reporting on it. So I think it'll free up. It'll be a better use of staff resources, and I think the intention is that we will still review both of those documents on a quarterly basis, and I think that is just a better use of the committee's time, and certainly a better use of the staff's time.
Through you, Mr
Councillor
Mayor,
Watts.
just thank you to Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Brown. Very well explained update on that. So any more questions, comment, discussion around that, Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I agree with what the comments that have been made. One thing that did strike me really was the fact that there was such a lot of repeat of minor things that were in the finance paper that really didn't, yes, they need to be there. However, but that really didn't need to be reviewed every month. And also, I agree with the Land Committee. It just did seem to be, I haven't been involved very much with it. And when I started to become involved, it just seemed to me it was a very unwieldy instrument that needed to be reformed. The other matter, of course, that's been a concern of mine for some time is the fact that the amount of time that directors are taken up with providing information for not only for the reports, but also a lot of the questions that really are answered within those committees. And I just think that it's, in many cases, I think it's been abused, and that's why that it needed to be reformed. We need to remember too that we only have a limited staff, and if they're going to be their time is going to be used not in which is questionable the productivity, that somehow we need to take a stand on that and say, look, this will be answered in that committee. And so I agree very much with the fact of the reform. I'm still very much of the opinion that we need to be well informed, but I do believe that this reform will yield forth good results. And so I certainly support the reform.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Burns.
Yes, Mr Mayor, just as a member of both the Finance Committee and the Lands Committee, I completely endorse this. This is going to take a lot of time off councillors' hands as well as staff. So I don't think anything else needs to be said.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. No more comments, questions, comments? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 11, councillors. SCR 09.2 infrastructure services. There's 4 recommendations.
Move that one.
Move Councillor Watts, second councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion?
Questions?
Councillor Watts.
In relation to the pre-chlorination and fluoride project, just wondering why it hasn't made it into the recommendation when it's a 1.7 million UV pre-chlorination and fluoride project.
Through the chair, so you're referring to page 12 in relation to an update about the pre-chlorination and fluoride project. Yep, so that project is an approved project that's been funded for about 18 months, 2 years. So it's just in its doing technical reviews, getting ready to go to tender. So it was just an update on that project.
I had actually previously asked that question when you were away, Mr. Harriet, and yeah, so it's great that the project has been brought back to our attention. And just in relation to the Wilson Memorial Oval Facilities upgrade, I'm concerned that there's another project that requires change. I need to question why we don't get the scope and the pricing and the time frame right in the first place. And I am concerned what will happen if the department does not allow us to have that extension.
Mr. Elliott.
Yep. So through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So I agree with you that this project's changed a lot since we initially developed it for the Stronger Country Communities Round 2. We try to do our best in getting these grant projects up and running as quickly as we can. At this stage, we're working with our funding partners, state government, and it looks like we will get a resolution there that will get us a project that will work. So, yeah.
Councillor Burns.
Mr. Mayor, through you, Mr. Mayor, the ISC 0908 grading and resheeting completed in 2019-20. The table that's actually there, I understand what it means and I don't understand what it means. So can staff please make this a more user-friendly document as far as changing the name of what gravel sheet pavement. It really doesn't mean anything to the general public. So if we could get that amended so that in the future, when these things actually go out on public display or when the minutes come up to us, we know what we're talking about.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'm sure that can be certainly done. Mr. Harriet. Okay, no more questions, comment, discussion. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. Just in relation to the submission to the Regional Roads Transfer and Road Classification Review Panel, I'm just wanting to see in relation to Coulson's Creek Road, the Road 358. Have we heard back from Liverpool Plains Shire Council in relation to a joint submission?
Through the Mayor, we're working with all our neighbours on those joint roads, so that's continuing. I don't have a current update as of today, but yes, there shouldn't be an issue with getting a joint submission with them and the other councils.
Could I ask, in that case, and I wish you well. I hope you're able to obtain that concurrence from them. In terms of the date by which a submission can be made, if we receive the agreement before submissions close, would our submission include that road? And if so, does council need to resolve to include it?
Mr. David.
There's a second round for submissions. It's December. And so that's when we would do that after the discussions. To me, we would try and get that. I'd like to see that we get that up to our next meeting. The other councils they would sort of know, I think, pretty well by now whether they're interested or not, because it'll be based on what other priorities they've done in relation to whether these cross-border roads would be of interest to them, because every council knows that if you are going to get any, you're only going to get a certain number. You're not going to get a lot because in the handback, for example, it's only 15,000 kilometres across the entire state. That sounds like a lot, but not across New South Wales local government. It isn't. So, so hopefully we can get something up to the October meeting, and yes, you do need a council resolution. There's no way I would submit any input to this without a council resolution.
Thank you, councillor. No more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 26, C09.1, the Scone Upper Hunter Regional Sale Yards Committee. Move councillor Campbell, second councillor Burns. Questions, comment, discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Look, it's probably a way of a comment. I mentioned earlier that the Scone Sale Yards has received quite a bit of criticism regarding the fact that it is actually costing. And I had a discussion with one of the livestock agents just prior to this meeting, and they were very confident in the fact that with that new facility and also with the increase in livestock numbers, that it is certainly going to come out in a positive way. But I think it should be noted, and I'd like this to be certainly noted, no matter what sale yards you have, and there is such a lot of mention of the fact that using online services and sales, that's quite correct. But you need to have a point of assembly where that when buyers buy stock, they're not going to run out to my place and just pick up 10 cattle or 20 cattle. They want them in B double loads and minimum of double decker semi-trailer loads. And so therefore we need to remember that a good sale yard facility where your livestock is not going to be damaged when they bring in for sale, and then when the purchaser makes their purchase, they can then truck them out to the abattoirs. Because today, when you take livestock to an abattoir, you'll be, especially if it's direct, you'll be docked a certain amount if those animals are bruised, or else that there is something else wrong with them. And so therefore, I think we are rightly proud of the fact that the Scone sale yards meet all of those criteria for the work health and safety, and also the fact that they are such a good facility, and that our stock can come in, be looked after, and then trucked out. So I think that we just need to remember just what a good facility this is, and it will pay for itself as time goes on, because the livestock, especially in good seasons, always have a habit of breeding and increasing in numbers. So I commend the Sale Yards Committee, and especially to the chairman, which is our mayor, for the way in which that this has progressed. And it's just been, will be a great asset to the Scone and also the Upper Hunter Shire area.
Thank you, councillor Campbell. I'll just make one comment on dot point 3. We welcome Dave Payne, a long-time buyer and a producer, and Colleen Brown, also a long history around the sale yards. We welcome both of them onto the committee. No more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 31, C09.2, councillors. Remember, there's a small variation on dot point 2. Everyone got that in front of them? We're going to move her as that change in the amendment, in the recommendation. Move councillor Fisher, councillor Burns. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 39, C09.3.
I'll move this, Mr. Mayor, with a slight change in the recommendation to refer to in 2A, the Finance Committee be referred to as the Corporate Services Committee. And I just note that that I presume that one of an order of business towards the start of that committee will be to recommend its charter back to council.
Move councillor Brown, second councillor Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the section 355 committees and council delegates as at June 29, 2020. If we could just change a few of the names in the delegates, as this document is actually wrong. Example, Audit Risk Improvement Committee. I am actually a fully fledged member of that committee. The Upper Hunter Economic Development and Tourism Committee, Councillor Bedgegood is no longer with us. AGL Macquarie, I think that should read the mayor, whoever that may be. Arts Upper Hunter Board is now under council vote actually a year ago, is Mr. Pringle. He's our delegate there. And the Upper Hunter Air Quality Monitoring Network Advisory Committee, I think it should be the mayor and staff.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Mr. GM, you'd like to add anything to that? Or you take that on notice and get that all rectified?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and whether any other councillor, there's any other committees they're not on that they thought they'd like to be on, now be the time for that as well.
Okay, no more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 47, G09.1, 2020 Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. Move Councillor Watts. Second Councillor Driscoll. Mr. GM, do we need to nominate?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's going to be they're still having their conference, excuse me, normal business papers. It'll be a virtual, so 2 delegates from this council. So look for 2 councillors at a minimum as delegates, and of course any other councillors could attend, but it'll be a virtual event. So it may be in this room or maybe the committee room, but yeah, if we can get a couple of delegates, I think you still should have your say in public policy of local government.
Councillor Watts.
I'm not putting my hand up, but what I am saying is if you haven't been to one, I think it is well worth going, and because you've got the opportunity to do it via video, it might be a good experience.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll stick my hand up with the stipulation that I'll actually have to speak to my boss about this. I'm returning to work next week, which is not in itself a nasty thing, but I will stick my hand up for it. And if I will have the information by the end of next month, if we have to change my name, then I'm happy to.
Councillor Fisher. Well, I'm quite happy to do it, but if Councillor Burns can't for any reason, can you step in? Okay, thank you. Any more questions, comment, discussion around it? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 52, G09.2, request for donation. Move Councillor Watts, second Councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 59, G09.3, cultural activity grants 2020. Move. Oh, sorry. I'm too quick.
Move
Okay,
that way.
G09.3, move Councillor Watts, second Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion?
Like to comment.
Councillor Watts.
As the manager of the Neighbourhood Centre and not-for-profit group, I'd just like to say these kind of grants are, you can't actually fathom what they mean to small community groups. No matter how small they are, it's very, very hard to get access to additional funds. And I wouldn't be the only one that would say without these, they wouldn't be able to do those little extra things for the community. So just to make council aware that they are a good grant and to continue them.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Councillor Watts's comments. They are, this is a great program, and I'd encourage council to consider expanding it into the future. I just note that we received many applications, $26,000 worth of applications. We only had $15,000. So I don't think we were able to provide anyone with the amount that they requested. And which is, it would be my preference that we could provide these groups with what they ask for. But I commend each and every one of them for preparing the application and for doing the work that they do. But I would urge council to consider doubling the program at least next year.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Burns, I was a little bit quick for you. That was passing the affirmative, Councillor Burns, for your information. Over to page 68, G09.4. Move Councillor Campbell, second Councillor Burns. Any questions, comment, discussion?
Yeah, I'll
Councillor
make
Burns.
a comment on this, Mr. Mayor. This is really important, an MRI machine, 3 of which in the Maitland Hospital. The new Maitland Hospital, in my opinion, Mr. Mayor, is really undercooked. It has not been delivered for the regions. It's only been delivered as a stopgap for John Hunter. It really needs to go to actually have a look what's going to be serviced by it, which is all the way up the Hunter, halfway to Tamworth, and then back across to Dubbo. There is no cardiac ward, which is obviously something quite close to me. There was in the beginning, but then all of a sudden the money disappeared. It started out as a $750 million project, Mr. Mayor, and now we're lucky to get 250 million. These people, these ministers, these members need to actually make sure that the regions are being looked after, because at the moment they're not.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to G09.5, page 74. Got a mover? Move Councillor Fisher, second Councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 79, G09.6. Move Councillor Brown, second Councillor Fisher. Questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I just have reservations about this because I do know in the Merriwa area that there are other land claims that have been taken, and I have no problem with the Aboriginal people, Indigenous people having land in any way, but they're just so located in such ways that they have the potential of causing some difficulties. And I just think that doing this sort of thing, we are just encouraging that, not allowing for a good block or something like that. I asked it in the briefing, and I was assured that the Hunter New England Health had been notified, and I just asked for that. Is that the case to Mr. Haviott? Is that the case? Are you sure that they have been notified of the intending change in ownership?
Mr. GM.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, there's every expectation that would happen, but I feel we just need to double check. And if they haven't been told, they'll find out from us.
Okay, thank you anyway. Look, the way in which it's written there is no recourse. And so if that's how it's got to be, it's how it's got to be. But I do believe that is the wrong decision.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just point out, particularly for our listeners at home, that this is not a council decision. We are merely advising the department that we don't have any lawful interest or occupation. It's a matter that will be settled by Crown Lands in the determination of the land claim.
Thank you, councillor Brown.
Mr Mayor, yeah, look, I understand. Thank you for bringing that forward again. I still reiterate what I'd said earlier, but yeah, I think you're quite correct in your interpretation.
Thank you, councillor Campbell. Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Aye. Against? So councillor Campbell against. Okay. Okay, councillors, over to page 83, G09.7. Move, councillor Watts. And can I second this from the chair, please, councillors? Because this has been a long, drawn-out process, but I'll let you speak first, councillor Watts.
Do you have to, Mr Mayor? This has been a long-term project, but I'm really excited that we've actually got it in our papers. This would have to be the best time for something like this to happen when Australians are touring Australia. It's a great opportunity. We've got a bypass that people will be going past on. So it will be a way when we've got the signs in at each entry that they'll be able to come into town and utilise this facility. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic to everyone involved in that one.
Any more questions, comment, discussion? Councillor.
Well done, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Fisher.
Yes, well done, Mr Mayor. I know you've been pushing hard on this. I just want to sort of highlight the slightly wishy-washy language that pertains to the recommendation. We're endorsing in principle and we're investigating options and we're going to provide a further report. Can we really get a move on with this? It's been so long that we've been trying to get this up. It's a magnificent spot. It's a wonderful place to camp. It'll be an absolute boon for the town, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Thank you, councillor Fisher, and I agree that recommendation I'm prepared to accept for the short term, but I'm sure we'll be stepping up and down if the action doesn't start happening. Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 87, H09.1, Revised Code of Conduct. Got a mover? Move, councillor Fisher, second, councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Page 91, H09.2, Revised Code of Meeting Practice. Move, councillor Campbell, second, councillor Brown. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 94, I09.1.
I'll move this with an amendment, Mr Mayor. The recommendation that the committee receive the report, that's supposed to read council, so that the council receive the report and note the information. That's the amendment.
Yep, you happy with that, councillor Watts? So let's move councillor Burns with a small amendment and second the councillor Watts. Got that down? No more questions, comment, discussion? Speaker, councillor Watts.
In the business paper, this report states that 133 Kelly Street is behind deadline. In terms, slightly behind deadline. In terms of how long this project has been on the table, I'll actually say 3 years. Council cannot continue to propose a project such as toilets in our main street to our community and put up such photos and have community consultation and then sit on it, which is basically what they're doing. I notice in the paper also that the time frame in relation to the Heritage Advisor has not supported the project in time frame. Is there any way that we can put a time frame on feedback from our Heritage Advisor? And if we can put this maybe after the RV, but we need to move forward on it and get a project with toilets in our main street up and going as soon as possible.
Certainly agree, councillor Burns.
As ever, Mr Mayor, councillor Watts has made my point so eloquently, but I will endorse her comments wholeheartedly because this has taken too long and the community is not happy. They want their toilets in the main street. And I have text messages on my phone of people saying, where can I go to the toilet? So, that's where we're at. We need to get it done.
Thank you, councillor Burns. Mr Pringle?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the DA will be reported to council next month.
That's good news. I think we're all on the same
Thank you.
page. Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, move over to page 100, I09.2. Move councillor Campbell, second councillor Driscoll. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, councillors, that's the end of the agenda. So we've got someone to move us into confidential. Move councillor Burns, second councillor Watts. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.